Three cousins from the same poor family in the same small Louisiana town. All three became world famous. All three left and never came back. A town where the water ran brown for years while officials said it was fine. A civil rights revolution that changed America started here, in a town most people can't find on a map. These aren't stories from a history book. These are 7 Louisiana towns where the clock stopped, the money left, and somehow the people stayed. We're counting them down. Winnfield, Louisiana. Population just under 4,500. Winn Parish has one of the lowest median household incomes in the state, and that's saying something in a state where nearly 1 in 5 residents lives below the poverty line. This town produced 3 Louisiana governors. 3! Huey Long, the Kingfish, the man who wanted to be president, who built roads and schools and told the rich to share, came from right here. So did his brother Earl and their family friend O.K. Allen. Have you ever been to a place where the most exciting thing that ever happened there left? The old L&A depot still stands downtown. There's a museum inside. Huey's portrait looks out over a display case of buttons, pamphlets, photographs. The rest of Main Street is quieter than the exhibit. The man who promised to redistribute the wealth of America grew up in one of Louisiana's poorest parishes. Winn Parish is still one of Louisiana's poorest parishes. The next town on this list also produced famous people. All 3 of them were cousins. All 3 got out. Ferriday, Louisiana. Population under 3,000. Median household income, $28,467. Poverty rate, 55%. Yeah, more than half the town. In 1935 and 1936, 3 cousins were born into the same poor Pentecostal family in this small town in Concordia Parish. Jerry Lee Lewis went on to record Great Balls of Fire and Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On, and briefly rivaled Elvis. Jimmy Swaggart became one of the most watched televangelists in the world, until he didn't. Mickey Gilley had 17 #1 country hits. Between them, they sold tens of millions of records and reached hundreds of millions of people. But look, what does it say about a place when literally everyone famous enough to leave did? I mean, there's a Jerry Lee Lewis Museum on Louisiana Avenue. His sister ran it for years out of the family home, the same house the cousins grew up in. Fans still make the drive out. They come to see where it all started. They don't always stay for lunch because there isn't much open. 3 cousins from one address changed American music and American religion. The address itself hasn't changed much since. So there's that. The next town didn't produce musicians. It produced cotton. Then the machines came. Tallulah, Louisiana. Madison Parish, Upper Delta. Population just over 5,700, down 37% since the year 2000, making it the fastest shrinking city among Louisiana's 100 largest. Poverty rate, 42%. This was cotton country, the kind of place where the land was everything and the people who worked it were worth less than the crop. Mechanization arrived in the 1950s and 1960s, did the math, and eliminated most of the jobs. No industry came to replace them. The young left for Shreveport, for Houston, for anywhere. The ones who stayed because they had to or because they chose to. And there's a different kind of dignity in both of those. Picture this. 2 miles outside of town, a Greek Revival plantation house built in 1832 still stands on Walnut Bayou. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. The fields around it are still farmed, by machines now mostly. The house looks the same as it did when the first bale of cotton left this land. The town behind it looks like it's still waiting for something that isn't coming back. Median home value in Tallulah, $78,000. No, that's not a typo. In a country where the average home costs over $400,000, Tallulah's real estate market is technically affordable. The question is what you're buying into. The next town didn't lose its economy. It lost something harder to replace. The moment history happened there, and then moved on. Jonesboro, Louisiana, Jackson Parish, Northern Louisiana. Population 4,106 as of the 2020 census, and declining. In 1964, Black men in this town formed the Deacons for Defense and Justice, the first armed self-defense organization of the civil rights movement. While core organizers staged nonviolent protests, KKK night riders threatened the community after dark. The Deacons answered with guns, strategy, and the willingness to protect their own. The organization spread to 17 chapters across the South. It changed the calculus of the civil rights struggle. Ever wonder what happens to a place after history moves on and forgets to take the town with it? Now look, the church where they organized is still standing. There's no national monument, no highway sign you'd notice at speed. Jackson Parish is one of the poorest in Louisiana. Jonesboro's downtown has more closed storefronts than open ones. The deacons stood up in one of the most dangerous places in America, at one of the most dangerous moments in American history. The least the country could do is remember where it happened. Still with us? Good, because the next town didn't just get left behind by history, it got left behind by its own infrastructure and had to fight for something most of us turn on every morning without thinking. St. Joseph, Louisiana, parish seat of Tensas, the least populous parish in the state, with around 4,000 people total. Per capita income in St. Joseph, approximately $9,000 a year. For years, the water that came out of the taps in St. Joseph ran brown, sometimes orange, sometimes black, lead, iron, boil water advisories that never seemed to end. Schools shut down because they couldn't guarantee safe water for the children inside them. Residents went to local officials and were told it was fine. They went to state officials. The state eventually declared a water emergency and spent nearly $10 million replacing the entire system, roughly $19,000 per remaining resident. Journalists compared it to Flint, Michigan, in America, in 2017. Right. Picture this. The only significant employer in nearby Waterproof, a village a few miles down the road, is the local jail. The elementary school in that village is shuttered. A former principal remembered when there were multiple grocery stores. That was not long ago. Tensas Parish has been losing population for decades. The people who stay are not staying because things are good. They're staying because this is home, and home is complicated, and leaving isn't always an option. The next town had clean water. It had a lot of things. What it couldn't seem to wash off was 1965. Bogalusa, Louisiana, Washington Parish. Population, around 10,300, down nearly 28% since 1990. Poverty rate, 39%. Median household income, $30,749. In 1965, Bogalusa was described in The Nation as Klantown, USA, estimated to have the highest per capita KKK membership in America. Police officers were Klan members. The Klan held open rallies in violation of the city's own anti-masking ordinance, and city officials made no move to stop them. Civil rights demonstrators were beaten on downtown streets while law enforcement watched. It took a 6-month campaign by the Bogalusa Civic and Voters League, backed by the Deacons for Defense, and direct federal intervention by the Johnson administration to begin breaking the grip. Decades later, a local pastor said this: "The attitude hasn't changed, only the methods. They're more covert now. You listen for code words. The Klan presence is still there." That quote is not from 1975. It is from this century. Yeah. Bogalusa was a company town built around a lumber and paper mill, Crown Zellerbach. When that industry declined, the tax base went with it. The mill is still there, smaller. The poverty stayed full-sized. A town that spent the 1960s fighting integration is now 50% black and 40% poor. The Washington Parish humidity in August does not care about any of that. It just sits on you. If Bogalusa is the town that couldn't leave the past alone, the next town made a different choice. It decided the past was the only thing worth keeping. Opelousas, Louisiana, St. Landry Parish, founded in 1720, one of the oldest cities in Louisiana, the third oldest in the state. Population today, around 15,000, down from a peak of over 22,000 in the 1980s. Poverty rate, 37%. Crime rate, 259% above the national average. Jim Bowie made Opelousas his home. The city served as Louisiana's wartime capital during the Civil War. I mean, Clifton Chenier grew up here, picked up an accordion, and invented Zydeco, a genre so specific to this place it almost can't be explained to someone who hasn't heard it in a bar on a Tuesday. Opelousas is still officially the Zydeco capital of the world. The festival still happens. People still come. Between 2011 and 2013, the city lost 30% of its taxable business revenue. The police department went from 64 officers to 38. The ones who left went to Lafayette, where the pay is better and the calls are quieter. The ones who stayed earned $32,000 a year. The brick sidewalks downtown date to the 1830s. Opelousas has the eerie quality of a place that knows exactly what it was and hasn't fully accepted what it became. The music is still there. The murals are still there. The history is absolutely still there. The question is whether any of that is enough. And Opelousas has been waiting on that answer for 60 years.